Your Honor, I object!
And why is that?
Because it's devastating to my case!
Overruled.
Good call!
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for being on the program. The audience is here with bated breath. Please, the floor is yours. What happened yesterday? What are our takeaways?
Well, we had an opportunity to ask Hunter Biden questions for over 3.5 hours. The Republicans had over 3.5 hours. The Democrats didn't use their time. So we got a lot of questions in. That's why I wanted to have the deposition versus the public hearing. We're going to have the public hearing now, but we had to get the deposition in. We spent the first hour of the deposition asking about specific transactions, specific accounts, specific LLCs. And I think that you've done a pretty good job reporting about what happened. You know, when he needed to remember that his dad wasn't sitting beside him when he sent that text extorting money from China, he remembered that. But when there was a suspicious wire from a adversarial country coming into it, he was on drugs and high and couldn't remember that time. So he had selective memory, like so many of the other Biden associates. But I think what we were able to prove yesterday for our case moving forward was that there are many of the criminal wrongdoings that he confirmed during his testimony yesterday, as well as there were many things that some of the other associates of his had testified in these interviews and depositions that he denied. So it was in conflict of what we've already received in sworn testimony from other associates. So I think the next phase that the American people deserve is to have a public hearing with Hunter and the other business associates and let the American people determine whether or not they believe the Bidens are telling the truth. But one thing I will say, Benny, after 3.5 hours of deposition with Hunter Biden, after 4 hours of interviews with Jim Biden, I still don't know one single thing those businesses did to earn the $30 million they took in from our enemies around the world. They've never been able to explain to me or anyone else investigating the Bidens for corruption what exactly they did other than sell access to Joe Biden.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to state for the audience that's a little buzzer ringing when votes are called inside of the House. That's not Jamal Bowman pulling the fire alarm. I just want to set everyone at ease there. So when it comes, speaking of Jamal Bowman and open criminality inside of the building, it does seem as though Hunter Biden took, according to what we've heard, the whole "I was on drugs" route out in many of these cases. So that's what he said. He said he was lying when he was talking about his father being there next to him. He was on drugs. He just doesn't remember.
Well, it was funny. I've got to be careful what I say because we haven't released the transcript yet. Hopefully we'll do that in the next 24 hours. You're not really supposed to talk about the deposition. The Democrats have clearly broken that rule. But I will say this, Benny, when he got backed into a corner, that when he was asked about an email or a text message, if he didn't say that it was Russian disinformation, that the laptop had been compromised, then he would play I was on drugs and high on cocaine. I couldn't remember. But then other times he would say, no, absolutely not. He was on drugs and couldn't remember sending that WhatsApp message, but he did remember his dad wasn't sitting there beside him. That was
good.
Okay. Takeaway from that. Yeah.
Very important. Clairvoyant, really, truly. Because Joe Biden definitely wouldn't have remembered where he was at the time. We know that from the Her report. So we've heard something very shocking yesterday. A member of your committee went and approached the cameras very briefly and said, Hunter Biden said that he was fighting the Russians on the Ukrainian gas board. That's pretty peculiar given the fact that he accepted $3.5 million from Elena Baturina, who's a Putin ally and the Moscow mayor's wife. It's a strange thing to say you're fighting the Russians when you're accepting their money.
Right. That was you can always watch what's being said by the Biden legal team or the White House, and you can anticipate a new twist in the media narrative. So when Hunter said that, I immediately thought, oh, now the twist is going to be Burisma was not a corrupt company. They were actually fighting Putin, and Putin means Trump. So, the whole Democrat obsession with giving a blank check to Ukraine kind of played out a little bit yesterday when the president's son went into great detail and was very dramatic in describing what my colleague in the deposition said, that he was suddenly a great warrior against the atrocities of Russia.
Yeah, I mean, we have the articles up on screen right now. Hunter Biden cashed massive checks from Russians and then also cashed massive checks from Chinese companies. You've, of course, shown those checks to the world. Some of them signed to Joe Biden in part. And these Chinese companies are Russian allies, right? So they were making tons of money from Russia.
Yeah. There's more evidence in what we've uncovered with the Bidens to show that they actually colluded and profited and benefited from Russia than anything I've ever seen on the Trump family. The whole Trump Russia hoax was based on the Steele dossier, which we now know is complete fiction. But what we have proven in this investigation is what you said, Vinny, that Hunter Biden took $3.5 million from a Russian oligarch. Joe Biden dined with that Russian oligarch. And then from a policy standpoint, Joe Biden's had 3 executive orders issuing sanctions against Russian oligarchs. All 3 left this particular Russian oligarch off the sanctions list. So right there you have, what I think is a clear violation of corrupt practices, as well as a policy decision that was made by the president to benefit one of these shady characters that gave the Bidens millions of dollars.
Yes. So you talked about your aha moment when you're like, oh, okay, now I see the narratives forming in real time. And I spit my coffee out, Mr. Chairman, when I saw that the FBI acted with absolute light speed to burn one of their sources and say that he lied to us. How dare he? We're going to charge him. Now, that's fine. You shouldn't lie to the feds. But they never charged anyone with the Steele dossier, which you just brought up. And that went on for years, that investigation. The FBI never once, and it would have been very helpful to Donald Trump to say, Christopher Steele lied to us. This dossier was manufactured, Russian disinformation, quite literally, paid for by Hillary Clinton. They knew it the entire time, but they never charged anyone. And they certainly never did so to circumvent a news cycle. Yesterday, I saw Democrats come out while the hearing was still going on, which is preposterous.
Which is against the rules. What they did was a clear violation of committee rules. You're not supposed to talk about what went on in a deposition until the transcript, until both sides agree on releasing the transcript, which we're going to do as soon as it gets typed up and ready to go. You had 7 different court reporters in there doing all of this. But they clearly broke the rules when they did that, the rules that they agreed to. But I just wanted to make that point. That's why Republicans were going out during the deposition talking about it, because we made an agreement. And, the rules don't apply to Democrats, and they sure as hell don't apply to the Bidens.
Please. So I don't want to belabor the point by being too long-winded here. I'm just trying to connect the dots. So the FBI, a big piece of evidence was the FD 1023 about the Biden bribe. The FBI comes out and charges that guy in order to discredit him and say that he lied. Now, I don't know what the internals look like there, but they never did that for the Steele dossier, even though it seems to be, on its face, then something very similar, like a very, very similar case. It seems as though the FBI and the intelligence agencies were working to circumvent the narratives around your investigation.
There's no question. You're exactly right. That's exactly what happened. In fact, once the FBI learned the Steele dossier was fake, they offered $1 million to anyone in a desperate attempt to try to validate it somehow. With this situation, when we discovered the 1023 from the source that Charles Grassley had within the FBI, we knew that the FBI had never investigated. We knew that, and they hadn't. By all accounts, they had never even looked into that. Then we asked Christopher Wray, Jim Jordan, Chuck Grassley, and I asked Christopher Wray who the informant was. He wouldn't tell us. We never knew. All Christopher Wray said about the informant was he was one of their most trusted, highest paid informants in the entire Bureau, that they had paid him in excess of 6 figures for over 10 years. That's all we knew. Now they're charging him. One of the things they charged him for was communicating with Russia. Well, it looks like he was a U.S. spy in Russia. That's what the United States government was paying him to do, was to spy on Russia, communicate with Russia. So I don't know whether he lied or not. I know in there it said the money would be dispersed through various bank accounts. We found that in that trend in Romania and China. They said that Hunter was going to get over $5 million. We found that he did get over $5 million for himself. We haven't found the money that was in the allegation to Joe Biden, but we're unable to investigate this because all the characters are in Ukraine. My subpoenas don't work outside of the United States. So many of these characters, these shady characters in these other countries that sent the Bidens money, they're hiding out in China, they're hiding out in Ukraine, they're hiding out in Kazakhstan and in Russia. The subpoenas don't work over there. That's where you have to have an FBI to get your back. Not only is the FBI not cooperating, they're doing what you just cited in your example. They're doing things to obstruct our investigation and to discredit the investigation, and then work and collude with the corrupt mainstream media to create false narratives. This has been a very difficult investigation, but at the end of the day, I think the American people see the Bidens have taken in $30 million from our enemies around the world, and they can't say one darn thing they did to receive the money. From the people that we've interviewed, we know they were selling the brand. The brand was Joe Biden. Joe Biden said he never met with any of these people. We've proven he met with all of them. He would go in. He was the closer that would go in and nail the deal down. The Biden family would take in millions and millions of dollars. This is influence peddling. I think most Americans would agree that it needs to stop. And that's what I hope the ultimate outcome of this investigation is, to define what influence peddling is, prevent it from happening in the future, so that we don't read about the Menendezes and the Bidens in Congress continuing to enrich themselves through public corruption.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the allegation that you just made is really shocking, that American federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies are actively obstructing and punishing people who blow the whistle on illegality inside of our own Congress in order to protect people of a particular political persuasion.
Look at the two IRS whistleblowers, Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler. They came forward. Everything they have presented to us has checked out, and they've been retaliated against. They were doing their job. They were the top people in the IRS International Tax Crimes Division. They investigated the Bidens for years. It was obvious the financial crimes they were committing, and yet they were told to stand down by the Department of Justice. And look at the Biden family. Let's just look at the family. They've been investigated by multiple U.S. attorneys in multiple districts. They've been investigated by the FBI. They've been investigated by the IRS. They've been investigated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. They've been investigated by the ATF. The list of government agencies goes on forever that have been investigating the Bidens, yet not a single time have they even had to stand trial or face an indictment. Every single time they were told to stand down. And in the Treasury, with the 170 bank violations that we discovered that the Biden family had, 170 suspicious activity reports. This is unheard of, but yet no one in this family's ever been held accountable. That's what the purpose of our investigation is, to try to first get the truth to the American people, and secondly, to somehow hold this family accountable, as well as hold the government bad actors in the deep state who have been a part of the cover-up accountable.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'm really glad that you brought that up, these bad actors in the deep state, because there is one text message from Hunter Biden that was a question that was asked yesterday on X, and I'd love to ask it to you right now. The text message has to do with Patrick Ho, who's apparently worked with Hunter Biden and was a client of Hunter Biden's. He wired Hunter Biden $1 million after he was federally charged here in America. Hunter Biden says that China, as retaliation, arrested CIA agents in China, which seems like spy novel espionage stuff that comes directly from Hunter Biden's own hand here in retaliation to the Chinese government in the ouster and arrest of U.S. suspected CIA operatives inside of China. So like, and then he pulls in obviously Vladimir Putin, the gas deals, and it seems like the Bidens are wittingly or unwittingly at the nexus of like some massive humiliations, or major like espionage acts inside of that same deep state that you are describing. Did you ask Hunter Biden about these texts? Does he? I mean, do they know that they might have gotten Americans arrested, if not worse, abroad because of their illegal activities and their greed?
Well, I think what you're going to see in the transcripts is that we have a lot of texts like that. And, the defense team for Hunter questioned the validity of the text because they came from the laptop. And then they're trying to replay this Russia 2.0, that the laptop's Russian disinformation, therefore the laptop's been compromised. But we are all over that accusation in there. It is a fact that Patrick Ho gave Hunter Biden $1 million. And what it was apparently for was a retainer for, quote, legal fees, because Hunter was a lawyer. Patrick Ho got arrested in New York for bribery. He worked for CEFC because that's what CEFC did. They bribed high-ranking government officials and their relatives in countries so that they could enact their Belt and Road Initiative. I mean, that's the business model for CEFC. This Patrick Ho got arrested. He was charged and convicted in the Southern District of New York. He paid Hunter Biden $1 million to be his lawyer. Hunter Biden's not even licensed to practice law in New York. He's not even licensed to practice law in New York. We don't know that he did anything to warrant that $1 million retainer. So, what we're seeing in these interviews and depositions from Jim Biden, who's not a lawyer, his money he's trying to claim were consulting fees. Well, consulting fees is the same thing as lobbying when you're lobbying a government agency or lobbying a government official. But Jim Biden wasn't registered as a lobbyist. Hunter Biden, it has the benefit of actually having a law degree. So, you can say, well, I got a retainer. That's what that deposit into Owasco was. It was a retainer for my legal services. But then you see in this Patrick Ho situation, who was directly getting the money from China. It wasn't a company in China. It was China. And, he gives Hunter $1 million to be his lawyer, but Hunter's not even licensed to practice law in New York. So none of this makes sense. We're trying to get all of this on the record. We're going to be having the public hearing. We expect Hunter Biden to show up for that. And then we'll be issuing our report, and we'll go from there.
We look forward to that. We thank you. I mean, Hunter Biden did call this guy the effing spy chief of China. That is his client. I mean, the rabbit hole goes a lot deeper than I think many know, and we are so deeply thankful for you, Mr. Chairman, for your exposure to this. The truth shall set you free, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, Godspeed. Godspeed.
Thank you.